Thank you, Shekhar, for this really insight, especially on the difference between for-profit, board for-profit organization and non-profit think tanks. Also, the key role in resource mobilization that could be played by the board, and also the composition of the board. We have about 50 minutes remaining, but we would like to give you the opportunity first to ask some questions to the panel here, and also take among yourself the grantee institutions that are presented here. You can form two groups and discuss few questions we're going to put to you, and then report, give feedback. So we will start with questions for about 15 minutes, and then we'll get 15 minutes for you to discuss among yourself on few questions, and report back in 15 minutes. Okay. Yes.
More in the nature of comment than question. I thought all three presentations were tremendously useful. I wanted to comment on the relationship between the CEO and the board chair. I've encountered think tanks in which the chair seems to have been captured by the CEO, in which the board seems to be serving the CEO. This is not an organization anybody should fund or would want to fund. Everybody needs a boss, and when I'm a CEO, the boss is the board chair. And I've had two board chairs, both very strong women, one when I was in a think tank, the other at IDRC. And there was no doubt in their mind or in my mind that they were the boss. And this is extremely important because as human beings, we tend to be self-serving. We also tend to have biases and make mistakes. And if you have a confident relationship with your boss, you're always trying out your ideas on the boss. And most of the time, the boss won't have an opinion. She'll say, "Don't know, sounds okay to me." But occasionally, she will say, "I'm really not sure about that, David," and that needs to be taken very seriously. So I've been fortunate in that respect. On Shekhar's points, which I thought were extremely important, having a mix of skills on a board, having financially literate members, particularly on the Finance and Audit Committee, extremely important. Just having eminent people who are on a board to be honored is a very bad strategy. These people will do nothing for the organization. I like Shekhar's idea and Maureen's idea also that board members have to want to do something for the organization. If they don't want to do something for the organization, they shouldn't be on the board. Finally, the figure you put up, the graph you put up, Chair, was interesting but a bit alarming. I think for most boards, the most important decision they make in their minds is the choice of the CEO. And the fact that that didn't appear as a dominant factor in the chart was really a bit alarming. And it's not just the choice of the CEO, it's also the evaluation and feedback to the CEO that is a very, very important function, it seems to me, of a board. And a CEO faces that with trepidation, but knowing that it's necessary and helpful, as Maureen pointed out.
So, thank you, David. Yes.
My name is Somano Edikaji. I want to ask Maureen a question. And if she can give us maybe about 6, can list 6. What are the skills and attributes? If you were to set up a new think tank today, what are the skills and attributes that you will want to be represented in your board?
Okay.
Well, first of all, I would
Okay, I wanted to take
a
couple of more questions and then, yeah, you.
Well, first of all, this is Rajiv Bhargav from CSDS Delhi. First of all, I wanted to correct something which was displayed on the chart. I got the impression that there is no board in India which takes ultimate responsibility for the finances of the institution, or very few such boards. I'm really not very sure whether this is true. It's certainly not true of our institution. The board has to examine and must examine all our budgets and any kind of anticipated expenditure. In fact, there's a committee which is set up by the board which looks into every financial detail. And that committee meets before the board meeting, because that is the committee that examines everything in detail and reports to the board. There's a member of the board who is responsible for this and who chairs that committee. So financial stewardship is in the hands of the board. Not only the appointment of the director, the CEO, but and all the other functions, but this particular function is also something which, at least in our case, is something which is will rest with the board. I do wanted to probe a little more, because we talked about the board and what the board can do for us. And these were excellent presentations and very, very helpful. But you also said, and this is to Maureen also said that it could sometimes be a lead weight around organizations. And in fact, my impression is that our center had gone through something like that experience, and over a period of time developed a slightly instrumental attitude to the board, rather than one of care, loyalty, respect, and so on. And it's taken, at least since I've come over and taken over, it's taken some time for me to restore that kind of respect for the board. Now, and this is something one of you mentioned, that it's extremely important for the CEO to develop in the faculty and in the entire staff a certain kind of relationship of trust and care and respect for the board, so that they could return it to the institution. And without that, we will not be able to, work together in all the ways that you mentioned. And that we have successfully been able to do now. We have Shekhar, as you mentioned. We have a public interest lawyer. And it's sometimes, if there are persons of eminence, sometimes you can get into trouble, though. If you have somebody who's a really good public interest lawyer on your board, he could become controversial if he's, we've got a very senior journalist on the board. We've got somebody who's a member of the Planning Commission, somebody who is a corporate person and now has become a member of the Rajya Sabha. So we have a pretty diverse kind of people. And one last suggestion before I stop. What we're planning to do is to take senior members of the faculty and particularly these new board members. We're planning to go on a kind of a retreat where we will meet, and they will come to know more about our institution, and we will also come to know more about them, so that we can have more fruitful exchanges to better nurture the institution that we are supposed to together. So, yeah, many other things to say, but I better stop.
Okay, sorry, we're running behind time, so I will let the panel address these comments and questions.
Diakalia, can I make a suggestion? Given that there's so much interest and we're just getting engaged, Why don't we not do the breakout groups and simply discuss things here?
Yeah.
Because time is short. We only have 35 minutes.
Okay.
We just, I think, yeah? Would you?
Okay, yeah. But before we go to the breakout groups, I just want to say that with chart we show here, we have asked the grantees to list some of the key functions of the board, and they have listed key functions. And now what we have done, we have taken the 2 key functions that were listed, and maybe in India is maybe at the 3rd or 4th position that attending financial issues was listed. That's why it's not showing. Thank you. Okay, so what we will do now is...
Sorry, I think you misunderstood, Diakalia. I was saying that we should not do the breakout groups. We should probably just make this one breakout group as a whole. That was just my suggestion. It's up to the participants, really.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay,
good. We'll break the flow of the conversation.
Okay. Okay, so, but I will let the panelists
maybe you might want to take
now.
Maybe, okay,
yeah,
fine.
please.
Maureen, I think you were about to.
Yeah, I was leaping in before I should have. On the question about for a new think tank, what would I think that the qualities of new board members ought to be? Well, first of all, as we've said, the chair is key. And so what kind of a chair would you want? You want somebody who's very keen on the mission of the organization, on the think tank's mission. You, I think, want somebody who is very experienced in the policy environment in which you are working. This could be somebody who has had political experience but has not been so, as it were, burned by it, that just their presence will mean that no one will listen to you. And also somebody who has great policy experience but doesn't want to spend their time with you fighting old battles and telling old war stories. We know how much fun that is, but it's not usually that useful for the think tank. But mainly, a chair, and now these are the characteristics that should be shared by members, people who are very good at scanning the environment, who are very thoughtful in being able to put what you are bringing to them in terms of your strategies and the programs that you want to develop within the context of the country, of the region. So those are the kind of intellectual qualities that you would want. And I absolutely agree that you need to have somebody on, at least one person on that board, and they should all aim to become financially literate, who really does understand budgets. What do they mean? How are they developed? And are you doing it properly? And helpful to have legal expertise. But I think helpful and I would say not, it depends what stage you're at. Maybe necessary, may not be, it depends on your context. But mainly, you want board members who are keen on your mission, who understand that they're board members, not senior staff members, and that's your job to help define what it is they're there to do. Very experienced in scanning the environment, and also understand how policy actually gets made. And somebody who's been a senior, has been a permanent secretary, somebody who's been in politics, but somebody too, and the people who do not immediately raise flags to whoever you are trying to influence at the moment. I would also aim for some kind of gender parity.